Chapter 2. The Neglected Pearl. Reece landed in an almost inaudible crouch, absorbing the shock of impact from jumping off the 2-story building with relative ease. Squinting his eyes to locate his target in the nearly pitch-black alleyway, he caught the faint gleam of flaking silver-colored paint peeling off the door handle leading into his destination. Picking the lock in a matter of seconds, he slowly pushed the heavy door open, just enough for him to slip through, before hastily closing and locking it behind him. The store was full of knickknacks, antiques, and other odd items that only a pawn shop would possess. As unique as the inventory was, this wasn't what Reece was interested in. He silently navigated through the shadowy store, not needing to see where he was going, as Jake hadn't changed the shop's setup for as long as he could remember. Reaching the table in the corner with the shop's only cash register, Reece tapped several buttons in sequential order. Once he hit the last digit, he heard a slight click as the lock on the secret entrance behind the tattered curtain clicked open. Reece smiled in anticipation, eager to see the man that he had considered to be his only family left in this lonely world. Almost sprinting the short distance between the register and the partially open false wall, he slid it to the side and glided down the cramped spiral staircase that seemed to lead into a dark abyss. Catching the faint glow of light leaking in through the cracks of another door, he reached out to turn the knob slowly, composing himself before entering the inner sanctum of his old friend's home. Upon stepping into the dimly lit basement, Reece could hear the unmistakable sound of a hammer being cocked back, immediately followed by the pull of a trigger. Time seemed to slow for a split second, allowing him a moment to catch the glimmer of light reflecting off the bronze-colored bullet. He tilted his head to the left, causing the projectile to sink into the brick wall right behind him.
Well, that's one way to greet your customers,
Reece called out, turning toward the source of the shot, seeing only the silhouette of a man standing behind a lone desk. The large figure reached to the side, flipping a switch that instantly bathed the interior of the underground hideaway in a bright light. Reece looked away and moved his hand to shield his eyes from the sudden change in brightness, blinking several times to adjust his vision. Once he looked up again, he gasped at the sight. The room was a maze of workbenches, shipping crates, and display cases with an impressive assortment of items displayed on the floor and along the walls. Reece marveled at the sight before turning his attention back to the burly figure that was now making his way toward him.
Damn boy, haven't you had a knock-in? You know it's shoot first and ask questions never down here. I could have put one right between your eyes.
Good thing my uncle was always the one with the better shot.
Reece forced himself to move across the basement to greet Jake, the family friend that served with his uncle in the military. The adrenaline rush of his earlier encounter was starting to wear off, his body now protesting with every step he took. He hadn't taken any hits, but the force he'd put into each of his strikes caused his muscles to tighten and ache.
Look at you. You can barely walk. Take that damned hood off and look me in the eye, boy.
Reece brought up his hands, flipping the hood back while trying to fight the urge to grimace at the sharp pain in his side.
Not a scratch on me. None of this blood is mine.
You got lucky then.
Says the one who sits in his shop all day hoping for change, but doesn't do anything to make it happen.
Jake scowled in anger, then sighed, stopping to lean up against one of the workbenches, turning his head to look Reece dead in the eyes.
Your uncle tried to make a difference. He was murdered for it. Do you think this is what he wanted for you? To see you go out in some emo biker get-up and take on every criminal in Riven by yourself? I thought it was just the emotions talking when you told me what you were wanting to do at the funeral. Now you're here in my shop, bleeding out all over the floor I just mopped. For what?
I know it's what he wanted, and he told me to come find you if I ever needed anything. That you were one of the few I could rely on. I know you helped him when he went beyond his duty as a cop, taking the law into his own hands when the rest of his department wouldn't. He never said it, but I knew. I'm asking you for that same help. The world is broken, and no one seems to care enough to do anything about it. I can't live a life hiding from what's out there. I have to do something.
Jake removed his glasses and inhaled, massaging the bridge of his nose with his thumb and index finger.
Okay.
Okay, as in?
Okay, as in, I'll help you. You're too damn stubborn, just like your uncle was. You'd do this with or without my help. With my help, you might just survive long enough to gain some sense and go to college. I even bought a shirt thinking you'd take that football scholarship North Riven gave you.
Sorry to disappoint.
Alright, I've got some things in mind that'll help even out the odds there. First, we'll need to make sure you're well protected. Can't tell you how many times Jack would come in with a new scar from a knife or bullet graze.
Gesturing Reece to follow him, the bigger man stopped to rummage through one of the wooden storage crates near the workbench he'd been leaning against, pulling out a thin gunmetal gray vest. He handed it over to a wide-eyed Reece.
This one here is top of the line. Military grade and just graduated from prototype status. This puppy here will stop anything but a shot at point blank range. Hold on to that.
Continuing to make their way through the cramped armory, Jake paused at a case full of metallic weapons.
Well, we've got quite a few things here. Let me know what you fancy, and I'll pull it out.
Reece carefully scanned through the impressive assortment.
Can I see the shuriken? And the pair of brass knuckles. Closest to your side, please.
Like a kid in a candy shop.
Jake thought, reminiscing back to the days when his old friend used to bring in little Reece, who would always run around the shop, wanting to play with everything. Reece tested the balance and weight of the shuriken before abruptly turning and launching it at a mannequin that stood a few yards away. The shuriken glimmered as it sliced through the air, eventually finding its intended target, sinking deep into the heart of the wooden practice dummy.
Damn, kid. Nice shot.
How many shuriken do you have on hand?
The older man opened a drawer underneath the display case.
Why, planning on missing much? Looks like I've got about 24.
I'll take them all.
Next, he slipped on the set of brass knuckles, one for each hand. They were light, but Reece knew that with the right amount of force behind them, they'd pack a punch. Jake moved to another open shipping crate, this one decorated with various shipping labels showing that it had been around the globe.
Got one more thing for you. This'll help you stay organized in the field. Wouldn't want you pulling out the wrong thing when you're in the thick of it out there.
Jake whipped out a jet black utility belt, excitedly slamming it on the table between them.
Whoa, this is great. How much do I owe?
Consider this my way of making a change.
I knew I could count on you, Jake. I'm gonna fight to make sure what happened to my uncle doesn't happen to anyone else down here.
Tears began to well up in Reece's eyes as the image of his bruised and bloodied uncle flatlining on his deathbed flashed into his mind.
Don't get all soppy on me now, kid. Wouldn't do if the thugs you're fighting knew you were really just a big softy underneath that hood.
Jake moved around the table to embrace Reece in a tight hug, hoping for a second to shield him from the hurt that had plagued him his whole life.
Now, take this stuff and get some sleep. You look like a wreck and could use some rest.
Reece exited through the same way he came in, seeing the first rays of light begin to cut through the darkness over the horizon. Turning to face out of the alleyway, he saw the old dried-up fountain that was once the pearl of Old Riven. The fountain was large, and at the center was a giant mermaid emerging from a pool of discolored concrete water. Various statues of fish surrounded the mermaid, paying homage to the city's history as a fishing hub. The fountain now sat there neglected, just like the people down here. Even so, they still viewed it as a symbol of hope, representing what the city once was, and what it could, one day, be again.
Maybe someday soon.
A hint of a smile took shape across Reece's face before he turned to disappear deeper into the alleyway.
This is gonna be fun.